All right, Algebra 2. Let's try the tangent function. Okay, I know sine and cosine was a struggle. I am going to write up some more supplemental notes with some specific problems for you guys so that we can go back and look at what you were missing and try to simplify it down a little bit more. Okay, so the tangent function, it is your most real-world function. Well, so is the sine and cosine with the wavelengths. The tangent function is the heart monitor. Okay, and with the tangent function, you have no amplitude, so there's no height to it. It just goes on forever in one way and the other. The period now is pi over b. So instead of 2 pi over b, it's just pi over b. Now you have a cycle that starts from negative pi over 2b to pi over 2b. These are also your vertical asymptotes. And I'm going to show you when we do this tangent function what the asymptotes do or what they could do. So one thing about the tangent function to keep in mind, an identity. And you're going to see this when we are doing trig proofs. Tangent of theta is sine over cosine. Okay, this is a trig identity. This is on ACTs. Okay, so tangent of theta is sine over cosine. So cosine sine. So at 0, so if I'm looking at 0, my cosine is 1, my sine is 0. So it'd be sine over cosine. So it'd be 0 over 1, which is at 0. So at 0, I'm going to put 0 there. Pi halves, it's going to be 1 over 0. That's undefined. So there comes your asymptote. So what this looks like is it gets really, really close to that asymptote, goes through 0, comes up really, really close to that asymptote. So there's one branch of that trig function. Let's look at pi. 0 over 1, well, that's 0. Well, guess what this is going to be? An asymptote. So again, really, really close, come on through. Same thing here. We're going to have this at here, but the next one's going to be an asymptote. So it'll look something like that. So what happens when you're on a heart monitor and these cycles are really going to be really close together? Your heart's beating fast. What happens if you're on that heart monitor and those asymptotes go all the way out? What happens to this curve then? That's where they get the flat line. Because when you're pushing these asymptotes out, all of a sudden this curve's going to have no other choice but to flatline. Okay, so it goes with like the heartbeat. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Okay, so there's your tangent function. Now, when you're doing the assignment today, okay, so if we look at, see if I can get this. So if we look at that problem right there, and on number 1, it wants you to find the tangent of negative pi. So I'm going to come over here to negative pi. Well, where is it hitting on that y-axis? 0. So my answer is 0. On number 3, it wants tangent of 3/4. Well, if this is pi halves, which is 1/2 pi, and this is pi, 3/4 is in between it. Well, at 3/4, if we're going directly in between it, where is that hitting right there? -1. So my answer would be -1. Okay? So that's how you do those few problems. Okay? That's how you get those few problems there. Okay? Which isn't too bad. It's not too difficult. Okay? So, there is part of that tangent function. Another thing is it will ask you to do like a calculator. So in your calculator, if you are graphing a sketch, make sure your calculator is in radian mode. And if you're graphing, let's say tangent of theta, I would just type in the y equals tangent x. You don't need to select that theta. Use x and then hit graph. If your graph looks funky, and you know that you put it in radian mode, and your graph looks funky, do zoom, standard, okay? When they want you to calculate it, so they want you to do a nice little calculation, where they want you to plug in some degrees, make sure your calculator's in degree mode. to plug in degrees. Okay, make sure you're in degree mode. So like on problem 20, you'll need to have it in degree mode. So there's a tangent function. Not as hard as the sines and cosines. A lot of these are going to be graphed on calculator. A lot of these are going to be solved out on calculator. Okay, so again, when you're trying to just find the cycles, just plug in your b's, or the period, just plug in what that b is, what that number in front of theta or x is. Okay, so there it is, the tangent function.